Hey friends, now judging by the fact that we finally got some natural light in this room for the first time in about, what, 6 months on my channel, it does mean that summer has finally arrived, and also I've been to the first of the retro gaming events on the summer calendar, Revival 2017. Now I've done videos in the past on my channel about Revival and show reports and that kind of thing. I mean, it is a show that I generally do go to every year, sometimes twice a year actually, because they, quite often do a winter event as well. And it is one of my favourite retro events that we go to here in the UK. And this year definitely didn't disappoint. Now, the reason I go to these shows is kind of twofold, really. I mean, the first one is obviously to try and find some bargains and pick up software and hardware. And I did get a few little bits this year. Not all that many, because I've noticed the prices are starting to rise a little bit, and they're a bit more in line with eBay kind of prices this year, which I'll talk more about in just a minute. But I'll show you the pickups that I did get after we check out the footage that I recorded from the show. But the second reason that I like to go to these events is to get out there and meet people in person as well. Because, I've been doing YouTube for like 10 years now, and I do a weekly retro gaming podcast called The Retro Hour. And I sit here in my home office talking to this camera, or we record the radio show in in a studio. But obviously people listen and watch, but they're all just numbers on a screen, really. Until you get out there and shake people's hands and say hello, it all feels a bit anonymous before you get to do that. And it really is quite mind-blowing when you meet people who watch you every week and stuff, because my channel's really small compared to many of the retro gaming channels here on YouTube. But at this event on Saturday, I mean, I probably had about 40 people just stop me and shake my hand and were like, oh, we watch all your videos, we love your channel, listen to the podcast. So, that was absolutely overwhelming. That was mind-blowing. Just, if you did come over and say hello to me, thank you so much. Really appreciate your support, and it was lovely to meet you as well. And we will be going to more retro shows across the summer, including, I think the next one is Play Expo in Blackpool. It's coming up in July, so I'll keep you up to date with that on Facebook, and follow me on Twitter as well, at danwood_UK. Now, this year was a little bit different, because normally we go to retro shows on a Sunday, and my work shifts are kind of swapped around a bit this year. So it did mean I got to go on the first day of Revival, which was the Saturday. A lot busier than the second day by far. But also, annoyingly, my car broke the day before we went. So it meant that my missus Samantha, she kindly offered to drive me and four of my mates over there. And she's not really into video games at all. And I was kind of worried that she might be a little bit bored at the show. But actually, she had a really good time, playing on a lot of the arcades. And she even made a couple of pickups for the PlayStation 2 as well. Not necessarily games that I would have picked, but I'll show you those pickups right after we check out my footage from Revival 2017. Now, the Nintendo Switch really came into its own on the car journey there. The boys were having Bomberman and Mario Kart 8 tournaments all the way there, so I was kind of quite pleased I wasn't driving actually. When we did eventually arrive at Revival, only about an hour later actually, this is what you're greeted with. Now, it's kind of typical of most of these retro shows that you'll get a 50% split between traders and arcade machines and systems that you can play on. The one thing I will say is that the price that these traders are charging has kind of crept up quite a bit to eBay levels in the last 18 months to 2 years. For example, there, an unboxed GameCube for 30 quid. You'd have got one for like a tenner about 2 years ago at these shows. A debug PS3 for 130. I'm not really sure what pricing they normally go for. That might be good. 85 quid for an unboxed Spectrum. And there's an Amiga CD add-on there for 150, which I know is about the same that you get on eBay. I mean, obviously the advantage of coming to a show like this is that you can inspect the hardware hands-on and get much more of a flavour for the condition than you can on pictures on eBay, for example. And there's DJ Echo spending a bit of money by the looks of it. And on this next stand was where I picked up my only Atari Jaguar game at the entire show. I went there to get Jag games. I only found 2 of them, one of which I already had. And I wanted an Atari Lynx. Now, there was quite a lot of Lynx games, but unfortunately, no systems by the time I got there on the Saturday, so I didn't pick any of those up this time. But this guy had some really cheap stuff. Retro dirt, like 3 quid, £1, even 10 pence per item in his utter filth box. Now, Samantha was quite excited to find a Buzz music quiz there. We like a bit of Buzz quiz now and then. Unfortunately, I had to point out that we already had that one. She did make a few pickups, though, for the PlayStation 2. Not necessarily games that I'd have picked, but, maybe Scooby-Doo or Sitting Ducks is a bit of a hidden treasure. I think for me, this is always my favourite bit of shows, trying out these kind of obscure systems that you normally don't see. With it being quite busy, there was normally a bit of a queue for them. Apart from the Commodore 16, quite scandalously. It's a good system, that. A DOS PC there as well, running Doom, which, it's quite nice to see DOS gaming getting a bit of love. You didn't see a lot of that at other shows I've been to. And a few more kind of, rare systems. The good thing about these shows is they're very trusting. They'll leave the cartridges and discs on the table for everyone to play with, because it's, you know, it's a really nice community at these shows usually. And you've got some arcade machines over here in the middle. Again, like at the, you know, Seaside when you're a kid, you'd have to nudge someone off them. Like in his Pac-Man hoodie though. Speaking of Pac-Man, Samantha wanted to go on Pac-Man on the Atari 2600. Now she wasn't really aware of this game or its reputation, so she actually quite enjoyed it. I still think it's a crap port, but you know, there you go. To new eyes, apparently it's pretty good. Now when this machine became available, I couldn't resist a quick go. I do love old school shoot 'em ups. Always reminds me of being at the Seaside when I was younger. But it wasn't just old school games that were there. I mean, I'm on the Hewson Consultant stand here, hanging out with Rob Hewson, who I did meet last year at the show in Manchester at Play Expo. When I first saw this game, Hyper Sentinel, which is their new kind of modern retro shooter that's coming out on their platforms like the PlayStation 4, and they've actually recently announced they're going to be releasing this on the Nintendo Switch as well. Now, Rob did tell me I did start playing this game on the hardest mode in the game, so there you go, that's me making excuses for why I'm doing so badly. But I am backing this on Kickstarter, so it's really cool to sit down and get hands-on with Hyper Sentinel. If you want to check out a bit more, I'll shove that in the video description. But, you know, it reminds me a lot of Uridium, which I was a big fan of, and Uridium 2 on the Amiga, so it will be cool, especially to get this on the Switch. You know, it's a really good platform for, like, retro kind of games, actually. And there is a pinball section here. Not that many pinball machines at this show, actually. Only this little handful that you see here. But I do like pinball machines, you know, just the look of them and the sounds, and there's something very, you know, hands-on about the sound of the balls, like, you know, smashing around the table. So, you know, the very solid pinball machines, and Samantha was playing the Addams Family Arcade here as well. Not doing too great, but, you know, I think she enjoyed herself. Now, Dave Perry from Games Master came out of retirement, and he did wear a bandana. Some people were like, you know, will he, won't he? Bring the bandanas back out of retirement as well. I had Dave Perry on my Retro Hour podcast last summer, and he's actually a tattoo artist full-time now. And when we had him on the show, he was saying that he hadn't really thought about video games much for about 18 years. So maybe having him on my podcast last year is kind of what, you know, brought him out of gaming retirement. But it looked like he was having loads of fun here. He did a speech a bit earlier on in the day talking about Games Master, and here he was, you know, comparing a Street Fighter 2 tournament, and I don't think he's aged a day in like 20 years, the bastard, so I would like to find out what his secret is. But, you know, it was great to see him up there doing his thing, and, you know, the crowd was absolutely loving it.
First round to Ryu and Dan. That's not very nice. That's not
What a legend. And so that was really it. I mean, I didn't get a load of footage here. This quick walk around at the end just kind of shows you, there's Joe, little overview what was going on. But, you know, it was such a good day. I made a few pickups that I'll show you in just a minute. But, you know, it's always great to get out and meet people at these shows as well. You know, that is one of the main reasons I come, just to hang out with people that you normally only talk to online and have a go on these classic arcade machines and pick up a few games is always good as well. So there you go. That's been a look at Revival. So I didn't get a lot of footage from the event this year because I was quite busy, you know, chatting to people and, you know, trying to buy stuff and playing on the arcades. But hopefully from those, you know, few clips I got there, you can really see just what a great event it was. And there are loads of other people I met there as well, like Steve from Wavem Studios. Now, he's actually doing a documentary all about Commodore and his kind of personal journey with Commodore computers. It's a really professionally made documentary coming out on Blu-ray, getting like a cinema premiere in London as well. And he's been a filmmaker for years. And I actually filmed a few bits to camera for his documentary, and I'm doing a bit more with him in the summer as well. And I think that gets its premiere in London in December, so I'll keep you up to date with that on the channel as well. But, you know, it was great to meet guys like him in person, and it was just, you know, a really good day out. So I'll show you the pickups I got from Revival. Like I said, didn't get a lot. Actually, the first one is this quite fetching Atari t-shirt that I'm wearing here, which, you know, is going to be quite cool for the summer. And also I got some kind of, you know, lots of stores selling memorabilia. So I got a Spectrum mug with the old rubber keys on there. Got another mug actually, this one's pretty cool. It's a very noisy carrier bag. Got a Lemmings colour changing mug. Now, as you can see from the back there, when it's cold, the Lemmings vanish. When it gets warm, they appear. So these are only about £9, but you know, the nice little novelties to have. Game-wise, I got this for the Atari Jaguar, a puzzle game called Zoop. Now, you may have played this on other systems. I remember playing this on the Mega Drive back in the early 90s. Graphically, it is very basic. I mean, probably not even 16-bit graphics. You know, I think maybe even like probably the Sega Master System could probably handle this game. So definitely is not going to push the Jaguar in terms of capabilities. But, you know, I went there to try and find Jag games because they're really the only system I kind of collect for. I'm not a big game collector. Or also an Atari Lynx, like I said before. But there was literally only 2 Jaguar games at the entire event. I asked every stall, and I already had one of them. So it's nice to have another Jag game, and it is still box sealed from like the early 90s. Still even got the little plastic, you know, shelf hanger on there too. And it says £40, but I did do a bit of bartering with the guy, and he gave me it for 30 in the end, so not bad for a new old stock Atari Jaguar game. I also got this as well, a Sega Dreamcast Dream Key. Now this is so you can get your Dreamcast online. I've got a broadband adapter for mine, but I haven't really tried it all that much, so this is going to be quite interesting. I'm not even sure whether any of the software on this even still works, but this was only 10p, so I figured, you know, it's still factory sealed as well. It was worth a try. And then finally, these are the games that I showed you a minute ago that Samantha picked up. These PlayStation 2 games. Dancing Stage Mega Mix. She has got a dance mat, which you can tell by my physique. I don't do a lot of dancing. We've also got Scooby-Doo Night of 100 Frights, which came out in 2000, so I'm guessing that was probably even before the live-action movie. Graphics don't look bad, actually, but, you know, I'm sure for 10p, we're not really that bothered if it's awful. And Sitting Ducks, which I've never heard of, but it kind of looks a bit like... I think it's a TV series, this, wasn't it? I vaguely remember. Looks a bit like an open world kind of game, maybe a bit like Grand Theft Auto with 3D ducks. I don't know, so I'll give those a try. If they're any good, they probably won't be, but maybe I'll do a video on them at some point. So there you go, that was a look at Revival 2017, an amazing show. Great to meet you if you did come over and say hello. And keep an eye on my channel for more reports from retro gaming shows across the summer. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.